Are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What a day that we have coming up. It is friend of the program, just a friend in real life, just great guy all around. And hey, after beating the brakes off this guy the entire season, I thought I'd give him a few weeks, if not a month break, but we got too much Spartan basketball to talk about. But before we get there, hey, just want to thank you all for making Locked On Spartans your first listen every single day. Dave Klein, of SpartanHoops.com. How on earth are you doing, man? Thanks a lot for coming back on the show with everything going on.
Man. Thank you so much for having me, as always. You know I love doing this with you. Quite a bit of off-season chatter and rumblings. I mean, I thought we were going to have a nice couple quiet weeks. I was talking to you off air and just saying man, I could have just used a month off, for Michigan State basketball after the season, but we don't get any of that. And maybe our sick, demented, twisted minds actually love this. We absolutely love that we're talking about basketball. The season's already over. The stuff that's just boiling over nonstop, and we secretly love being just in fear all the time.
Who am I kidding? No, of course. I'm a glutton for this. I'll come crawling back to it every single time. Two things to talk about. One is obviously going to be the news of the day. Dwayne Stephens, after 19 years, he's off to Western Michigan. But before that, we got to go to the news of the day. 4 days ago here, Max Christie declares for the NBA draft. And first and foremost, I yearn for the day where everyone just accepts that this is just what kids do now. They will test the NBA waters and they can come back. I know that this is kind of a new-ish rule. And I know I'm calling, the kettle black over here, pot calling the kettle black, whatever it is, for calling people out for getting upset at minor things, because I get upset at minor things all the time. But man, this is just the way it works now, guys. And if you're somewhat remotely close to being high profile, you should declare for the NBA draft, get feedback, and then go forward. However, a few days have passed, and it's starting to seem wait a minute, is he actually going to stay in the draft? Is he going to come back? So how do you just read this whole situation? If I could just put all that up into one broad question for you, Dave.
Right. So, I think first and foremost, it makes a ton of sense for him to get feedback from the NBA and kind of see where his position is. My understanding of the situation is at least some of the family members, dad in particular, from what I've heard, it thinks that it would be a wise decision if he got a first-round grade and maybe even an early second to potentially stay in the draft. That's just what I've heard. I don't have any confirmation if that's 100% what the parents are thinking, but it sounds like at least there's going to be some serious consideration for remaining in the draft if he hears kind of what he wants to hear. My understanding of the situation is there is no discord between him and Coach Izzo. I have heard that that's quite the opposite, that they are on good terms still. And so any of the chatter regarding that is, from my understanding, not to be thought as true. And so now we're in a situation where if he does come back, there's some, just transfer whisperings about kind of what would happen in that situation. Maybe there was some unhappiness with some parts of his camp. I don't know if that's ever directly come from Max himself. I'm obviously not in those rooms. So I don't know how much of that is, just kind of the offseason chatter. He didn't quite have the season that maybe he wanted to, and some of, us expected him to have. And so is there just some pressure there from the way that the season went? I think so. And I think that this is just a process, at least, that we just kind of have to ride out. The NBA process is a few-month process. So there's going to be some feedback. I don't know in terms of whether he'd be invited to the camps or not. There's some ability for that. I don't know if that's something that he will be offered and will be able to do. But I think all around, it makes sense for him to get feedback. I'm going to just wait and see what happens. If he ends up pulling his name from the draft, then we'll have that conversation about what happens next. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, and okay, of course, this is all speculation stuff, and it depends what message board you read or what rumor you want to follow or whatever. But listen, this day and age, I don't think it's that crazy to just have the topic of conversation about transferring, because listen, it is free agency now at this point. And hey, Michigan State's benefited from some transfers. They've also seen some kids leave through the portal as well, especially recently. So I don't think it's crazy to just throw out as a what if. Do I think the percentage is high that he transfers? Not necessarily. because, well, just like you said, and I take your word very, high, that him and Izzo are on good terms right now, but it would also be very confusing for him to leave, right? Like he got 30 minutes a game. He was able to shoot whatever he wanted to, even when the shot really wasn't all the way there. And like, honestly, maybe I'm wrong, but like, I feel like Izzo was as publicly like glowing about him as possible. It's not like he was ragging on him in the media or whatever, because Izzo, as we know, can be a pretty tough guy to play for. And sometimes he'll call players out in the media, try to light a fire under them, but seemed to just absolutely love Christie from day one. I remember listening to the Tom Izzo radio show before the season even started. He was raving about Max Christie. So I don't know. It would just be very fascinating if that's the route he went. And that's why I just can't completely wrap my head around that being the way he goes if he does pull his name out of the NBA draft. Like, is that kind of what you're aligned with?
Yeah, I think it just would be shocking, right? The way that he came in, the way that he spoke about kind of his process in college, every interview that he gave, just the extreme amount of maturity that he showed over the years.
Right.
I would just have to think that if the decision was to transfer, that it was maybe just not 100% his to make. Maybe it's a mutual decision for that. I just would be so surprised given that. And I think that you hit the nail on the head. Max, had long parts of the season where he really struggled. I thought he defended better than we expected him to do this season. But offensively, he was not where we thought he was going to be, I guess, towards the middle to the end of the season. And so when there's some frustration there and there's always, the desire to be able to go within a year or two to the NBA, it creates some pressure around the situation and maybe some discontent kind of bubbles up with some of that. But I think in this particular instance, unlimited leash, played the most minutes on the team. He took the most shots along with Gabe Brown in conference play.
Right.
Like, he basically had as wide open and generous a season for a freshman that Izzo has really ever allowed. I don't know if he could have been any softer with the way that he just generally handled his minutes in his role this season in a difficult season, I think, for Max.
Yeah.
So I would be shocked. And, I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. I said something, to a friend, and I'm just like, the portal giveth and the portal taketh. And
right.
It's just the world that we live in now.
Yeah.
You have to not only try to add pieces, but you have to survive part of the portal too. It's like a living creature. So
I know. And that's why, like, everyone's so wound up about it, because just the minute that you hear the word, oh, he might transfer, it's like, well, yeah, sure he can. Like, everyone's doing it these days. Like, this is just how the world is. Like, it's free agency season right now, essentially. And listen, whether that's like a good thing for college basketball or not, like that's a completely different show. We could probably do 4 hours on if you want to kill some time this summer that way. But until then, like, I understand the angst from Spartan Nation, but like, I think it's nice to talk about.
It's premature, right? Until there's something that's concrete from the parties, and I think it's odd too. You see most guys who declare for the draft will also put their name in the portal if that's something they're considering.
Right.
So he hasn't done that yet. It would be, I guess, weird if he goes through the whole process and then like 2 months from now or 3 months from now, he puts his name in the portal, where teams are certainly going to be looking to fill some spots. And so if that's really his intent, you'd think that process would be a little bit quicker to let teams know and to see what kind of interest is actually there. So maybe if there's a small nugget of comfort, it's the fact that hasn't happened. And the longer that goes on and it doesn't, I guess maybe the more comfortable you feel that it's either going to be the NBA or come back to Michigan State decision. So.
And now we just wait, right? Now we just wait a few weeks, hope that he here's like, hey, just come back, get 12 pounds on you, 15 pounds on you, work on that jumper, limit the turnovers, and then you'll be a lottery pick next year. Hopefully that's what he has to hear, and hopefully that's enough for him to say, like, yeah, that sounds great. Okay, I can do that, no problem. Yeah, just one more year in East Lansing, please. Rick's is beautiful. I'd love to spend one more year there. Harper's is great, or also, I guess the whole, like, coaching staff and practice facilities, too, wouldn't probably hurt him as well. So,
right.
It's just fascinating, though. Because, like, you look at some mock drafts, and it's like there are some where he's, like, late in the first round, and others are, like, mid-second round. But, if it's first round, then tough to say no to. But, he does, like, have that lottery player in him somewhere. Are they confident enough that they'll get him there by the end of next year? Will it come back? So, all I have to offer is a stay tuned on that one, right? So.
Absolutely. So we'll hold it down and we'll see what ends up happening.
DK, I'm going to send you to the bench here for just one hot second, because I got to talk to the fine folks about StatHero.com. And then after this, we're going to be talking. We're going to be talking about Dwayne Stephens. That's right. After 19 years, he's out of here. But first, really quick, actually, I lied to all you. I said Stat Hero. I meant Built Bar, because You can tell I didn't have my Built Bar today because my mind's not straight right now. Because Built Bar, they just take care of you. They take care of your taste buds. We're talking the world's best protein bars, wrapped in 100% real chocolate, soft, chewy. They actually taste like what is on the wrapper. This isn't like your old protein bar where you take a bite out of it, chalk falls everywhere, and you just got to try to convince yourself that you're eating something that resembles chocolate. They also take care of your body because each Built Bar contains somewhere around 150 calories, just 4 grams of sugar, just 4 grams of net carbs, but a whopping 17 grams of protein. They're the best. They are sensational, and they also treat your wallet right. That's right. It's not just the taste buds, not the mind, not just the body, but also your wallet, because on Built.com, when you find your Built Bars, smash in promo code LOCKED15, and that's going to get you 15% off your order. Built.com, promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off of your Built Bars. And before bringing the handsome face for YouTube Dave Klein back, hey, just want to thank you all for making Locked On Spartans your first listen every single day here in the Locked On Podcast Network. DK.
Just watching a pro at work with that commercial plug. You knocked that out of the park. Unbelievable.
Other than just starting with the Ron sponsor right off the top, we gave up 9 runs in the first inning, but innings 2 through 9, shut it down. That's right. So that's I got just a really simple question to start this conversation off about Dwayne Stephens leaving Michigan State to go man the Western Michigan program. What was your initial reaction when the news dropped? Because mine was like, oh my God, it's actually happening. I thought this is always talked about every offseason seemingly, but it never actually happens. But here we are. So how did you take the news?
Yeah, I would say first off, just congratulations to Dwayne Stephens for getting an opportunity to finally be a head coach. I think that this job was offered a couple times to him. He's always kind of been, to a certain degree, a company man. He's been a great assistant. He's seen much success over the years at the right hand of Tom Izzo, and to lose him it's a big deal. I think it's a plug in the program where now you've lost your 2 longest tenured coaches in back-to-back years. And I think change is good, and you need some of it maybe with this program. But I also think that the appreciation for Dwayne and the years that he gave and everything that he accomplished while he was here, just immense. So appreciate that for sure. And now it's kind of an interesting part. Not only do we get some of the transfer talk, but then the top assistant leaves for the program. And here we are again, the wheel cycles, we got to find somebody. So
I know. And I love that you brought that up too, because I feel like, Dwayne's maybe caught in some flack here in the last 2 years because listen, and I get it. Last 2 years have not been great for Michigan State, and everyone just grasps on whatever straw they possibly can. And then okay, you hear that, oh yeah, Dwayne's in charge of rotations. It's like, oh, well, screw this guy. He's been here for too long. Get him out of here. But almost 2 decades at a place, that is some amazing continuity. And that speaks to Michigan State's program. Also speaks to how great Dwayne is at what he did at Michigan State. And yeah, now you do miss that guy. And that's a great point. You also bring up too that you did lose Dane Fife last year. And these are 2 guys that were long tenured here. So with that said though, of course, the second reaction you have after, hey, okay, good for Dwayne, hope he does well, is who's the next guy? Who's coming in? So was there a name that instantly popped into your head? Or names that instantly pop into your head? Because I got one, but I think we got the same name. I want to see it.
Yeah. So I think, just off the top of my head, first and foremost, I want to see somebody that recruits in here. I think that needs to be just a point of emphasis. I think that they could expand the base outside the Midwest a little bit. I'd like to see somebody who has a good base in the Midwest or has recruited before in the Midwest, but also is not afraid to go out and get some guys. Because I think that the program sometimes needs a little jolt in that degree. Yep. Or I want somebody that's a little younger with a fresher perspective and just kind of reset something, just get a little bit more energy into the program. So I guess out of the 2 of those, I know, we kind of chatted a little bit about it. I don't know if you're going to bring up Tom Crean.
Yeah, sure am.
Probably the easy first go-to one we think. He was just a couple weeks ago at Michigan State, oddly enough, right? He was visiting, a couple weeks back. So he was fresh in our minds. Great recruiter. I did a little bit of research. I was just curious kind of what the class is. I mean, Dwayne Wade to Marquette, Wes Matthews too. So a couple of pros that he brought into Marquette. And then he had a run from 2011 to 2015 in the state of Indiana where he brought in a McDonald's All-American 5 years in a row. That's
Right.
insane.
It's
That's
amazing.
insane.
Yeah.
And Anthony Edwards was probably a hardcore UGA lean. He still got him to come to like a pretty awful team and just like, are you
Still,
going to get
yeah.
yours? You can go get yours, Anthony. Like, don't worry about it.
Right.
So I don't know. I think that
deterred.
if that was the decision, he leaned back on familiarity. Somebody he's worked with previously, obviously knows the Midwest and has a good reputation as a recruiter. I wouldn't be mad about that. I think that that's the safest. Maybe you can hit a little bit more than a double type kind of swing on a guy like that. That's maybe a little bit familiar, but at the same time has some chops as a recruiter. I think that would be exciting.
Right. Yeah, it's not like he's stepping in and he's taking Tom Izzo's job. It's like, yeah, listen, I know Georgia did not go well at all. And, like, you say what you will about the Indiana tenure that he had there, but, okay, we've also learned, thanks to the Miller tenure, that it really isn't all that easy just to plug yourself in and have great Indiana teams. So to have him as an assistant, just like you said, recruiting is the name of the game here. And, yes, I know that he's not the young guy, right? And maybe Michigan State fans are a little tired of just seeing AARP members on the bench and only them. Like, they want someone in the under 45 club on there, which is fine. Hey, I respect that opinion for sure. But listen, like, I think we know that Izzo likes, and understandably so, keeping guys that he knows, guys that, he's worked with, and he's certainly worked with Crean for a very long time. They've obviously kept a good relationship, as just like you said, Crean was on campus not too long ago. So for this to be your safe option, you can do a lot worse with, like, your safe option or what the
100%.
boring pick would be.
Yep.
I would personally love this because, there are some, like, young names being thrown around, and SpartanAvenue.com, they did, like, 3 quick names, and one of them was Tom Crean, but the first one they named was very interesting, and that was Charlie Bell, who's doing work with, like, a semi-pro Flint team up there. What are your thoughts if, like, that were to happen?
Like bringing back a former player to kind of have a bigger role?
Yeah.
I would be open to it. I don't know if that would be your first assistant, right? You'd want somebody that's been in the college program and had maybe a little bit bigger taste of it. Not saying that he couldn't do it. So I like the idea of bringing back some of the former players maybe, or bringing back some guys to be around the program. But I don't know if you could give them like a top assistant job without having just done it in college, because I just think it's a whole different animal. So I would like somebody maybe with at least experience in that regard. But I think it's an interesting idea. And eventually I think, there's some pipe dream out there for all of us that Draymond Green at some point comes back,
sure,
coaches somewhere at Michigan State. So
yeah,
I like the general idea for sure.
Yeah. And like, hey, I want a young guy. Okay, like who's the young guy that you're thinking of then? And like
Lavelle Jordan maybe would be the name, right?
See,
This guy came at Butler kind of late in the cycle. They did him a little dirty. He has ties to the state of Michigan. He's from, I think, Albion, Michigan, and he worked for Michigan for, I think, 6 or 7 years as an assistant to Beeline. I thought it was going to work out pretty well for him at Butler. He kind of got a raw deal. The 2020 year that he had probably his best team. He didn't get a shot at it, and I think that his outcome would have looked different if he would have got a chance to maybe make a Sweet 16 or something. It would have let him hang on a little bit longer and try to build what he was doing there. But I think that he's a great guy, younger recruiter, hungry. So that would be one I think you would definitely take a swing at too, if that is more of the route that they went. But he's going to have some names from some guys that have been part of the program, I think. And so you'll see guys that maybe we heard the last time when Fife left kind of resurface a little bit. And either way, you just hope that it's a coach that is bringing something different to what the program currently has. You just want to see something different, whether it's recruiting or just a fresher perspective, a little younger, somebody that's maybe a little bit more plugged into the NIL stuff, whatever. I think that generally you want somebody in one of those two categories, and ideally both would be great.
And there's one other guy I want to get to, but not just for like an assistant coach. Here in a hot second, this is what they call a tease. You like that? That's right. I'm trying to be a pro here, DK. But first, just got to talk to you fine people about BetOnline.net. Woo, that's right, BetOnline.net, guys. They've carried us through the entire, not just March Madness, but whole college basketball season, because BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, including this week's Masters Championship odds. Go bet on James Pyatt. Also, go listen to the James Pyatt interview we did on yesterday's show of Locked On Spartans. Also, they got reviews for all the different leagues this season. BetOnline is your continued source for all sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device. Learn more about the trends in action at BetOnline, where the game starts. DK, my voice is fading so bad. Thank you so much for carrying the show when I'm hitting the mute button and coughing my brains out over here because I'm like caught some laryngitis at my buddy's wedding on Saturday, and oh my god, I'm fading. With that said, though, we got to introduce the topic. Drew Valentine. Now, I know that like some people threw his name out there for an assistant coaching gig. Listen, I'm going to nip this in the bud. Drew would hang up before MSU even finishes their first sentence of the phone call and be like, MSU would never insult him like that. Like, hey, head coach, want to come be an assistant down here? Like, I'm just going to eliminate that right now. But with that said, like, Dwayne Stephens was believed to be the guy in line, right? And now he's off to Western Michigan. Let's say it doesn't go well there. And a lot of people, hand up, myself included, fall in love with the idea of Drew Valentine, future Michigan State coach. Are you in love with that idea, or are you a sensible person and think that it's just way too early to start like hiring him as MSU's coach in 2028 or whatever it is?
No, I think that you have to always keep a little bit of a look ahead to the future because you just don't know how much longer Izzo wants to go. Is it 2 or 3 years? Is it 4 or 5? You just don't know. So I think at this point, what we know now is it's probably not going to be immediately. And either there was a conversation that maybe Dwayne needed to give a shot as being a head coach himself before that consideration was made, or he wanted to do so for himself. But I think that anybody that was kind of maybe believing that the natural succession would be Dwayne Stephens, I think that's changed a little bit now. To me, I think when you look at this is probably a situation where Michigan State at least takes some type of national search and kind of maybe cast a little bit wider net than I would have thought that they would have had he remained with the program until Izzo went. So I think in the long term, it's probably good for the general health of the program because I think that you want to explore all options when you're replacing a legend. And maybe it would have been a situation where it was more leaning towards one way. And I think this opens up the path to evaluating all the options. And we obviously hope Dwayne Stephens, does a great job at Western Michigan, maybe proves himself, and we want him to come back to the fold. Yeah. So I think this is really a win-win situation for everybody where he can, in a tough spot, maybe build something and try to just prove some of his value as, a head coach. So.
Listen, if he can go to Kalamazoo and resurrect that program, sold. Okay, fine. You know what? You've got the chops then. Like, you can do it here. Like, that'd be a pretty good testament if he can go and just make the Broncos like a somewhat decent basketball school. But yeah, it's just that is a fascinating thing that you bring up because I kind of had the same thing in the back of my head. Like, like the status quo is gone. Like, okay, Izzo's going to be here for anywhere from 2 to 22 more years. Dwayne Stephens is going to step in. And like, this is why he's never taken a job because like, he knows that he's a guy in waiting, but yeah. Oh my, a national search is on the table. Oh yeah. This is nice. But then again, like, and then I was like, wait, why am I getting excited? Like, I still like Izzo a lot. Like, he ain't going anywhere. So, but yeah, it's just funny how this is more of like a psych study than like anything else. Just on like how fans' brains work. And I know I'm exhibiting.
I think that fans love the idea of options, and I think that maybe this move and this general, occurrence ended up giving us a little bit more flexibility with what they decide for the next guy. So I'm excited about it. I think, to a certain degree, and I'm excited to see what he ends up doing with this position because I think this is a big hire for him, and maybe we'll speak to how much longer he thinks he's going to be here. So.
No, right on. And I got something completely off topic that I just want to end the show with, and this is off the tail of North Carolina beating Duke in the Final Four. Honestly, and this might be a hot take that I'll take back once I have a moment of clarity, but like that game is bigger than a national championship for what North Carolina just did. Listen, teams win a national title every year. Very rarely, if ever, do you get the opportunity to down your rival, kill their head coach in his final game on the biggest stage possible. Like, North Carolina has the upper hand in that rivalry forever. Duke can win the next 50 games against the Tar Heels, and that still will not even put them on that same level. So with that said, would you, if I offered you the chance to play Michigan in the Final Four, would you take it?
Right now, like with Izzo at the end of his career, absolutely not. No.
Good answer.
I would for days before that game. I literally would be dry heaving the hours leading into it. It would be the most unenjoyable game and probably give the most incredible feeling in the world to win that game. I mean, I can't imagine being a UNC fan. Not only did you do it in the Final Four and end his career, you did it his last game at Cameron Indoor. You put 2 stakes and drove him into each side of his chest, and they fucking buried him. I mean, excuse my language, but geez, like, holy smokes.
It's crazy.
That's got to be the greatest finish to a season ever. They made the national championship game. You're right. Maybe Kansas beats them by 20. I think they'll still think this is a pretty damn successful season.
Yeah. I think it's perfect too, because like a blowout at their barn, like that's awesome. That's so satisfying. He didn't leave a single doubt in the gym that day. And then he's got to do his retirement ceremony. But then also, like, you didn't just beat them in the Final Four. You won probably a top 5 game of all time that the tournament has ever seen. Like it's almost kind of like the Michigan State football game this year. Like that's the highest that game has ever been on anyone's radar. 2 undefeated teams, and not only did you win, but you won in a classic, like an awesome game. And like that's just gotta put a little sweetener on it right there. But with that said, DK, ain't no effing way I don't envy those fan bases at all. I know North Carolina's riding a high that they'll ride forever, but Duke fans, like, if I was a Duke fan, I would be in Tibet right now, and I would be a monk, and I would never look at a television or a basketball or a sporting equipment the rest of my life. Like, it'd be done.
I follow a couple Duke accounts. They have been dead silent for days. They're in mourning still. I mean, would you ever log on Twitter? It would take weeks for me to do it. I don't think I know your models tweet through it, but I think I would log on.
You know what? I think I finally found what I couldn't tweet through. And it would be that. Oh man, it'd be horrible. I would leave a message out. I'd be like, if anyone wants to know where I am, I'm not okay. But thank you for inquiring. And then I'd just leave until like probably 2034 and then come back and be like, all right, I think I'm ready to tweet again. I think I'm ready to be a jackass on social media about my favorite college team again. So
the build up to that game would just it'd be nothing. You'd lose like 10 pounds the week of the game. I
would eat 2 meals tops. I would eat 2 meals. I'd pick
up like on Monday. You'd just be starving yourself to the game time.
Right. So. Like I've never done as much as smoke weed in my life. And I think I'd pick up a heroin addiction, just like cope with it. Like I think I'd just go straight to the hard stuff. I would be a complete wreck. My wife would leave me by Tuesday of the week of the game. Like I wouldn't shower. Like I'd just forget to. Like it'd be horrible. It'd be the worst thing that's ever happened in my entire life. But then if they won,
it'd be the happiest moment. It'd be it. It'd be over. It'd be over.
I think our feet wouldn't touch the ground for like 5 years. It'd be great. Like I'd be floating. I mean, God, I got weeks of enjoyment. I got weeks of enjoyment off like the football game, and like that was just a regular season game in the grand scheme of things. Like this, to put a bullet in your rival's lawn tenured head coach, like. Oh my, that would be something else. So just had to pick your brain about that. I'm glad.
Obviously, incredible moment. Incredible moment.
It's like, oh, you guys are a coward for not taking that game. You're right. Yeah, you're right. Because I want to live. I want to survive. I like my life, and I want to keep living it the way it is. So, and if that game was scheduled, it all goes out the window right there. So
I mean, it wouldn't even matter if it was like a Sweet 16 game. We'd still be nauseous. Obviously, the bigger stakes, the further you go along. But even just to get into like the Elite Eight, I think I would still just be like, just sick about it.
I wouldn't even watch. I might not even watch actually. Yeah, I'd be like, you know what? Someone just text me the score after. I'm going to be in this dark room with a case of beer at my side until then. But so, yeah. Well, DK, thanks a lot for joining, man. Yeah, just got it. The Max Christie hoopla, the Dwayne Stephens hoopla. I'm like, you know what? I got to see if my guy DK wants to chat about it tonight. And lo and behold, DK, as always, you come through because you're the best, DK, and we love you for that.
I appreciate you so much, man. Thanks for having me on, and I hope maybe I calmed some of the waters, but maybe I didn't. It is what it is at this time. This is a crazy time of the year. A couple weeks out, and here we are.
It's terrible, and I'll keep crawling back. I'll keep crawling back every single time. I'll keep crawling back. That's right. Just like you find listeners. Thank you so much for making Locked On Spartans your first listen every single day. Love you all. Go green.
Go white.